Welcome back to another Know Your Foe. And this week, as you can tell, you have a familiar face sitting next to me, and that is the one, the only, the producer extraordinaire, Kevin Thomas. What's up, Kevin?
What's up, Saul? How's it going? Pleasure to be here talking some U of A football.
Let's go, man. Listen, I am donning the all white as the Wildcats will be when they play in the annual space game down in Orlando. Should be a pretty fun game, hopefully. At least let's just hope that it's competitive. I did like the way the Arizona Wildcats bounced back in the second half. If they could have just come up with one more defensive stop, who knows? Maybe they end up pulling out the victory. But I thought it was more encouraging than previous losses. I should say that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a weird spot this U of A football team is in, because I think almost no matter what the result is at this point throughout the year, fans are not going to be content as a whole. And so, no matter how disappointing or close or encouraging the results may end up being, I think that this Arizona fan base is just looking for a sign that this program is moving in the right direction in the broad term.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's been a very, very problematic season on a variety of different levels, and we can get into that. But we're here to talk about UCF. Let's find out what they're all about. And here's a perfect example of the tail of the tape right here. Arizona, obviously a 3-5 record. Both teams with a 3-5 record and only a 1-4 record in Big 12 play. Average points per game for the Arizona Wildcats on offense is just below 24 points, whereas UCF is actually scoring over 30 points a game. Both teams holding opponents to about 27, 28 points a game, and both teams turning the ball over incredibly way too much at about 1 to 2 turnovers per game. Yards per game, obviously, you have UCF a little bit higher in that measure at 454 yards, and then obviously Arizona at 389. Majority of that destruction comes courtesy of the running game for UCF. But before we get there, let's talk about some things that have happened this week that could or could not affect Arizona. Number one, first, Gus Malzahn, on his birthday of all days, decided I'm not going to call plays anymore because I suck at it and I'm not very good. So I'm just going to hand this off to somebody else. And then he proceeded. Sometimes you feel like, did he do this because he wanted to cushion the blow of what he was about to do next? Who knows? But he did fire defensive coordinator Ted Roof, who obviously was not favorable at that time right now in Orlando. And so those are the changes. And then in addition to that, we have this QB shuffle. A couple weeks ago, UCF decided to hand the key or take the keys away from KJ Jefferson, the transfer from Arkansas, and give them over to Ja'Carri Brown. Ja'Carri Brown had a pretty good couple moments here and there, especially if you look at the Iowa State game, big long run. They were in control of that game. They were up by 14. They ended up losing that game in Ames. But last week against BYU did not play very well at all, really struggled throughout the game. And then they turned to freshman quarterback Dylan Rizek. And Dylan looked pretty good, 7 of 11, was able to move the ball against that BYU Cougar defense. So it hasn't been determined as of right now on a Friday evening. There's still no determination on who the quarterback is, even though most people in UCF have said that they know who the quarterback is going to be.
Yeah, I was listening to Gus Malzahn this morning, actually, and in regard to the coaching changes, he kind of referenced the pressures, for lack of a better word, that head coaches are under now. He said that coaches, never have been spread more thin. They've never been asked to do more, and I think this was in the way that he was trying to put it. This was a reflection of that. He wanted to focus more on keeping the main thing, and that's kind of the way he explained it. Now, in terms of the other side of the ball, he did explain that while he's known that coordinator for years and years, it's never easy, but he had to do what was best for the team. He also mentioned, Saul, that this could be an energy shifter for UCF heading into a game that the players are already up for. It's the space game. They just lost their homecoming game last weekend to BYU. So yeah, I think we're going to see an amped up UCF squad ready to prove something this weekend.
Well, we'll see. We'll see, because for what Arizona is weak at, the defense for UCF is strong at. So Arizona's running game, not prolific. I mean, it's not like top tier, but Quali Conley does a decent job. That's their weakness on that side of the ball, right? The passing game should be their strength, and it has been when they've gotten T-Mac involved. You saw that last week. Looked like Noah Fafita finally started to get his footing. It was almost as like, oh yeah, well, I'm struggling. Maybe I should just throw the ball to the best player on the field, and that seemed to work out to a certain degree. UCF not very good at stopping the pass. They're in the lower third of the Big 12 in terms of that. So that is one thing that you're going to identify if you're Arizona, and how do you take advantage of this team? Now, I will say this. There's been multiple opportunities for UCF on the defensive side of the ball, and they can be a bit of a ball hawking secondary. Again, go back to that Iowa State game in Ames, Iowa. 2 interceptions that were both should have been returned for touchdowns. The second one, Homie just dropped the ball at the 1 yard line. They got the ball back at the 1 yard line and then scored the next possession. But still, that they can be a bit of a ball hawking secondary. So you got to be careful, and they have the athletes to be able to return that to a pick six, right? So you got to be careful if you're moving forward, if you're Noah Fafita and company.
Totally agree. And I think we've seen with this Arizona team this season that when they do turn the ball over, they turn it over in bunches. They turn it over, you know, confusing ways almost sometimes. No, Fafita, we know he has the capability to make wonderful decisions, but every once in a while he just either he's a beat too late or a beat too early, and that can be the difference between 6 points for your team and 6 points for the other team, or possession or what have you. But yeah, going up against this UCF defensive front, Arizona's offense is going to have to be on its best game. I think we've seen, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde a little bit of this Arizona offense. We don't really know which version we're going to get when that kickoff goes. So this weekend, if you're Arizona, you need T-Mac to be involved. You need Kean Burnett to be a playmaker underneath. And I think you need to get the running game going so it can open up the pass for Fafita.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think, obviously Noah had all season, it felt like he was behind the 8 ball in terms of touchdowns to interception ratio. Now he's ahead of it at 11 and 10. But you got to hope that he can keep this momentum going. And that's something that I'm going to look forward to, right? I know we all talk about, what do they have to play for left, right? Well, they still have a bowl game left to play for. So that's number one. And you still are 2 losses away from being eliminated from that contention. So you got 1 left to play with. That's it. And then after that, you're out of bowl contention and it's on to next season. But the development of Noah Fafita, I think, is another thing that you need to see if you're moving forward. I think if Brent Brennan and his crew really take a solid look at this, you got to assume T-Mac isn't coming back. So then what are you going to do to set yourself up for success next year? And how can you possibly start that process now? And I think that's what you're looking at if you're Arizona, if you're an Arizona fan. On the UCF side, really, obviously, with the mixture of quarterbacks that could possibly play, I have a hunch they're going to probably go back to Ja'Cory Brown, but who knows? We'll see. I think KJ Jefferson's time in Orlando is just about all but over. But they're a tough team. They can be a tough team. They have played some teams very tough. Iowa State is one. Okay, they beat TCU in their Big 12 opener right before their bye week by 1 point. It was a thrilling game if you have had a chance to watch that again. And then they lost to Cincinnati just by less than a touchdown. That was a kind of a knockdown, drag them out game. So they have the ability to be able to be competitive. And on top of that, they're getting their leading receiver and Kobe Hudson back, who was injured previously. And there's just a lot that would seemingly be going in UCF's favor. However, we've seen this as Arizona fans. It doesn't matter. It really, every week doesn't matter. Everybody's going to put a lot of stock into this space game. And I think before the season, that was one of those games where you're like, oh man, got to be careful of the space game. But all it takes is maybe Arizona to come out, score that opening drive, maybe score the second drive, and they're up 7-0, 14-0. And then all of a sudden, the floor is dropped out. Everybody's on edge. Nobody knows what's happening. Everybody gets a little bit rattled. And then you might be in a position to win a ball game.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way you laid that out because we've seen teams come into Tucson this year and do that exact same thing. I know the onside kick was a much maligned decision because it did not work. But no matter how you feel about the onside kick against Colorado, that allowed Colorado to come out and snatch momentum immediately from the Wildcats, going down and scoring on their first drive. So I think we've already seen Arizona be punished by a team going on the road and snatching away momentum from the home team. Now it's their turn to go out into a big raucous home environment and quiet the crowd early. I think that, we were talking about staff changes earlier, and it appears from everything Gus Malzahn is saying that the team supports this decision and that the team is going to be propelled forward by such a decision and such a, quite drastic change up, quite frankly. Arizona has attempted to make some changes like this, but we have not seen the forward motion of the offense change, quite honestly. Speaking specifically, Saul, what do you want to see so that Arizona can actually take that momentum early? What do you think that the first drive needs to look like? I think, because I only asked you that specifically because I think Arizona's had a problem with scripted drives, coming out of a half, starting a game. I don't think that the offense is as sure of itself as it should be for a drive that you've been preparing for a while.
Well, that's a detriment to who's been calling plays, straight up. Like, your scripted plays are based off of what you're seeing on tape from the opposition and what you think is going to play very well against them, right? So either they're not identifying the key solutions to those problems, or they're just calling the wrong plays at the wrong time. Whatever the case is, both are wrong, and we've seen that all season long. And so I think what I would like to see, I think I would like to see a lot more. I think we saw that last week. We saw some imagination, right? You had the T-Mac throw to Noah Fafita, who should have caught it and just basically moonwalked to the end zone. And we saw a little variety, a little flavor there, right? And so I'm just hoping that we see a little bit, stick to your script. That's fine. But you have to adjust as you see the changes on defense, what they're trying to do. Are they blitzing Noah Fafita? Are they trying to get him, to rush his throws? How are they attacking Noah Fafita is the biggest thing. And that's how you need to adjust, because every team has tried to make life miserable for Noah Fafita. Obviously, he comes in and he's thrown 10 interceptions on the year, and he's been sacked 15 times. So if you can rush him and speed up his process, he tends to want to drop back further because he's not trusting his line, and that's what's gotten him into trouble. Last week, you didn't see that as much. You didn't see the 30-foot dropbacks. You saw him step up in the pocket and try to make plays, and more importantly, you saw him identify the best player on the field and try to get the ball to him. That's the other part of this. Like, you have one of the greatest receivers in the country. You got to try and throw it. I don't care. If you're throwing Hail Marys down the field to Ramolo Murphy, for crying out loud, you should throw some Hail Marys down the field to T-Mac, because he's the one that can probably come up with those. So that's what I would like to see. On the flip side, let's talk about the biggest issue in this game for Arizona, and that would be the number one rushing team in the Big 12 coming in, obviously trying to come in and step their foot on the ground. So RJ Harvey is leading the Big 12 in rushing yards, 1,017 on the season, 13 touchdowns, averaging 6.8 yards a carry. As a team, UCF leads the Big 12 in rushing. They're at the top, and they are very pronounced at stopping the run. They're in the top 4 of the Big 12 in stopping the run as well. That is going to be the biggest issue for Arizona. We've seen running games before, but we haven't seen one as prolific and as dynamic as this one. I don't know how that's going to work out, especially with the plethora of injuries across the board for Arizona.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest side effects of imposing rushing attack for UCF is going to be ball control and possession time. I think, especially at home, we were talking about it earlier. If you're in an adverse environment, and if Arizona doesn't come out and throw that first punch, and let's say they go 3 and out on their first drive, right? And UCF is pounding the ball, that clock is just going to be ticking. Mm-hmm. And Arizona is going to be losing out on its opportunity to get into the game, even though it's early. And so, yeah, I think that rushing attack, you have to stop the rushing attack. You're going to have to make their substitute quarterbacks, whichever one they choose. If it is KJ, make KJ throw. But no matter what, you're going to have to make them throw the ball. You don't want RJ Harvey to have 2 touchdowns on the day. That's not what you need. And so, yeah, I think it's really imperative to stop this rushing attack. I know it's stating the obvious, but for Arizona, the team that they are specifically, you're not going to win this game if RJ Harvey has an average to good game, in my opinion, at least.
I mean, yeah, it's you're already facing a mountain in trying to stop this team in the rushing attack. And listen, every quarterback that they have can run the ball. So it's not just RJ Harvey, it's RJ Harvey and company. And that's the problem, is the dynamic running games have seemed to really be problematic for Arizona, especially scrambling quarterbacks, as we saw way back even in game number 1 with Dampier in New Mexico.
Forgot about that one for a moment until you mentioned it. So thank you, Saul.
So if Ja'Cory Brown is the guy that's going to get the ball, then that's the thing that you're going to have to identify the most. Make him pass the ball. Do not let him run all over the field alongside RJ Harvey, because if that happens, this game is going to be a blowout really early on. So before we go, Kev, give me your number 1 player on either side of the ball who you think needs to step up and have a big game in order for Arizona to win.
In terms of needing to step up, specifically needing to step up in terms of having a more outsized performance and a larger impact on the game, I think a lot of fans would say, Noah or T-Mac, just basic names. But I am going to go Quali Conley. I'm going to go Risano. I think if our running back room, I'm going to give it to them as a whole. I think if our running back room can show up, I think that will give Arizona a much easier time controlling the possession. We know this offense is not a run and gun offense. We know this offense wants to hold the ball. They want to control the ball. And so if we are able to do that using our running game, I think it's going to be a lot easier on the road. Some people might say defensive line, but I think, or some unit on the defense, but I just think that with so many missing pieces on that side, I think it's tough to ask so much of a unit that we haven't really seen that much of to start.
I get that. It's like you almost read my notes, like what I was about to say, because I am going defensive line. I'm going defensive edge. Trey Smith. I think Trey Smith has shown that he has the ability to be a game stopper, but because of the injuries and the influx of injuries, it is kind of tempered his results. But I think he's just as great a player as he was on day 1. And I think he's shown some maneuvers, especially when rushing the quarterback. And he's given a little variety to offensive linemen, and it really made it problematic for them. I need to see more pressure. I think Trey Smith by himself could disrupt what UCF might want to do in the run game alone. So I'm looking for somebody like him to step up, have a big game, because I think Arizona, the way they win this game is they're going to have at least 2 turnovers to win this game. I think if they can get 2 turnovers in this game, especially if they're in scoring position to do so, I think Arizona will win this game by a couple points. But if they don't get any turnovers and they give a couple turnovers, then I think that this game is going to be pretty one-sided from the jump. So, Kev, what's your prediction for this one?
Saul, I've given some thought to this week. Arizona's been through a lot this year. Us Arizona fans, we've been through a lot of emotional roller coaster this year. Emotional Space Mountain, if you will. Space game coming up. Why not take it to space? But I unfortunately cannot back the A in this game. Now, I would be ecstatic if Arizona came out and won this football game. I would be very happy as a Wildcat for life. But if I'm being realistic, this team has not shown me that they can bounce back. This team has not shown me that they can make week over week improvements in a manner that changes a football game. And UCF, they're at home. It's a huge game for them. 2 of their coordinators one was let go completely and one's job description has now changed. I think UCF comes out motivated. I think they probably beat Arizona by like 4 to 6 points. I don't think they blow them out. They have the capacity to, but I think Arizona is in win now mode. They should have, obviously they're in win now mode every week now, but with every week that you don't win, it increases the pressure even higher. And so I think UCF gets the better of the Wildcats this week, unfortunately. It's still bear down though.
No, yeah, always bear down. Like this is never a bias against Arizona, obviously, because we are an Arizona pod. So I think I hear what you're saying, and I like what you're saying because I think it does make a lot of sense. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Arizona to win this game on the road, just because of the ball control aspect on the other side. I do think that the run game is going to be prolific for UCF, especially with the amount of weakness that Arizona has all over the field on the defensive side of the ball. I'm looking for, again, I said the 2 turnover thing. I think what's going to happen is I think Arizona is going to come out and they're going to kind of mirror what they did earlier in the season, where the first drive looks really good and everybody's feeling pretty good. And then it's going to be dependent on what is that second drive from UCF going to look like. Whether UCF gets the ball first or they get it second, doesn't matter. What does that next drive look like for UCF? Do they score? If they score, I think that this game is going to be probably a double-digit win for UCF. I think that's the way Arizona can win this game. Is you got to keep the momentum on your side, and you can't let it up. So my estimation is I think Arizona will fight tough in the first half, but barring any turnovers on their side, I think UCF also wins this game, and it's going to be, I'm going to say 30-20. I think it's going to be a 10-point victory for UCF. But again, it's really just a coin toss because UCF comes to this game losing 5 in a row. Arizona comes to this game losing 4 in a row. And really the loser of this game is all but eliminated from bowl contention. And the great thing is, though, if Arizona wins this game, then they're right back in it in terms of like going to a bowl. They don't have a very strong schedule left. They got Cincinnati, Houston, TCU, and then they wrap up with ASU. So they have the potential to still get to a bowl game if they could just win this game. And I think, listen, this game and Houston, you win those 2 games, you just need one more between TCU, Cincinnati, and ASU. And I think they can get one of those 3, especially the last one at home. So who knows? Let's hope for the best. Let's hope the Wildcats can pull it out. But that's our faded, I guess you could say, prediction for this game. It's unfortunate, but it's just been that kind of season. So thank you all for joining us on another Know Your Foe. That's Kevin Thomas. I'm Saul Bookman. Until next time, folks, peace.
We all silly like the mayor.